All right, can everyone hear me? People can hear me. Great, God bless you. It's been really great to see everyone and catching up with people. We like to be in better circumstances. We appreciate you coming out for Dad. If you haven't seen, we have our programs. There are some of the tables. You can grab one. We're gonna start our service that we have here on the program, and the first thing we'll do is we'll have Mom. She'll do an introduction, and then she'll say a few words, and then we'll go on from there. Is the audio good? Can people hear me in the back? Sounds clear. A little higher. All right, we'll put it up a little higher. All right. What about now? Better? Yeah. Okay. Here you go.
Good evening, everyone. And for those who do not know me, I am Eva George's wife. Thank you for your presence. So this evening, is okay? Sorry about this evening. We gather to honor and celebrate the life of my husband. He was a very proud father, grandfather, a brother, an uncle, and a cousin, and a friend to many. Sorry about that. George was a George was a genuine, generous, compassionate, kind-hearted soul who impact our life, who impact and touch our lives in some form or another. He was love. George was love. Sorry, I'm terrible with public speaking, guys. Bear with me. Okay, I'm trying not to worry. Sorry. No. I'm gonna just have to read it from here. He was amazing, always with a vision and a step ahead. A DJ in his early teens, a self taught entrepreneur, mastering the craft that he became to love, plumbing, created opportunities for himself and others, worked beyond the five boroughs of the city, serviced all classifications of clientele, always took pride in his profession. He influenced and trained a next generation of plumbers to carry on his legacy. He absolutely loved his work. And while in the hospital, he often spoke of getting well and back to work. But his true legacy was love for all. I already miss him. And as I sat for a moment, still in disbelief that he's gone way too young, he's gone, I'm sorry, way too young. His mission has been completed. Thinking our youngest son, Anthony, has stated to me, Mom, he said, Dad lived a good life. He was a good man, had a good wife, good kids, good grandkids, good food and money. He lived his life to the fullest. What else can a man ask for in his health? And he was always the greatest plumber ever. Let's give it up for George. Okay. Thank you so much, honey. I love you, and you're in God's care now. Thank you. Okay.
That was beautiful, Mama.
Where is it? I don't know where I put that card at. Hello, everyone. My name is Maurice. I'm George's second son. Thank you all for coming. Uh, Very happy you all here to join us on this on today. That would be very happy that you guys are all here today, and he's smiling down on us right now. I'm gonna open up with a verse from Psalms 23. The Lord is my shepherd; I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restored my soul. He leadeth he leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yeah, though I walk through the valley shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, thy comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Um, Mom, you was too quick up here. Thank you. you know, I wrote some things for my dad. Um, here we go. Hello, family and friends. Thank you for coming and supporting our family during this difficult time. Mourning the loss of my father, George. I know. Mm, I'm sorry. Mourning the loss of my father, George Ramos. I know many of you traveled from far to be here with us today, and it's truly a blessing to see all of your wonderful and loving faces here today. Dad is now at peace with his mother and his father, his brother Bernard, and his sister Linda, and many of our beloved family members who have passed through heaven's pearly gates. They are now on the other side, awaiting his arrival to start their own celebration. I want to start with thanking my mother for her unconditional love and support while taking care of her loving husband. My mother was selfless. My, my mother was selfless in my father's final years and stood by his side for everything, trying to a bright example in what sickness and in health, to love and cherish needs and wedding vows. My mother is one of the most loving and strongest women I know. My parents, my parents loved and supported each other to put a good home over me and my brother's head. My parents together were pillars of the Ramos and Gonzalez family. They say every great man needs a great woman by their side. Every king needs his queen, and that certainly is my mother. She she helped shape my father to be the great man and dedicated father he became. With that motivation, my father did everything he could to be the best husband, father, provider to his family, and be an inspiration to his nephew and nieces who he loved so much. He supported our family and many others through his love and his knowledge and profession of plumbing. and his selfless acts of kindness. Dad was beloved by many because he held himself with integrity, good morals, and respect. Dad taught me and my brother many good things in life, and he made sure we were being raised in the right direction. He believed in good karma and doing good deeds for others would come back in other good ways for you. One of my favorite memories of my dad, from the many baseball games we attended, was surprising him with Mets tickets. And if you know my father, he does not like Mets tickets. Yeah. Ah. Um, I'll just say he made that explicitly clear. When I handed him the Mets tickets, he didn't even want to look in the envelope to see who they're playing. He refused till I made him, like literally refused. They were playing the Yankees. Sorry. Um, they were playing. They were playing the Yankees at the New City Field. Now he got excited and he saw this because this would be. Now he got excited because he saw this would be his first Subway Series game he got to attend. We had a great time. The Yankees beat the Mets, and I was cheering so much to annoy the Mets fans sitting in front of us. I started to annoy my dad towards the end of the game. He told me to sit down and chill out, and the Mets fans turned around and kindly thanked him. I spent the last 4 years working very closely with my dad, and I was very lucky to spend a lot of time with him. I will miss him. I will miss when we would go to look at jobs and I could see the twinkle in his eye and his brain starts to turn as he starts to think of the different solutions on how to solve the problem. Thanks, Mom. Excuse me for a second. Oh, I will miss when we would go look at jobs and I could see the twinkle in his eye and his brain just start to turn as he starts to think of different solutions on how to solve the problem. He truly loved plumbing and he loved every challenge it presented him and he welcomed them. Once he would figure out a solution, he would yell out, "It's a quickie." Meanwhile, the job is something super complicated or probably labor intensive. I know we all have our own special memory of my father, and I ask you all that you may hold and cherish those memories. Once again, I want to thank you all for coming and sharing this moment with our family. This is what Dad would have wanted. He's smiling down on us right now. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay. So, you may or may not know, Dad had been in the hospital, kind of in and out the last few months, and sometime in early December, like the middle of December, he was really struggling. He was really having a hard time, and sometime in November, the doctors had some concerns. They were like, "Hey, things aren't looking good for your dad." So I remember we in the emergency room, and I asked him if he wanted to do the salvation prayer, the sinner's prayer. He said yes. So we said it together, and he accepted Jesus. He squeezed my hand, and it was very comforting. It was very comforting to me. And there was a a song. There was a song that was very comforting that I played for him. It's in Spanish. It's called "Tu Fidelidad," and I'm gonna ask my cousin Francis to come up and sing it, please.
Tu fidelidad es grande, tu fidelidad incomparables. Nadie como tú, bendito Dios. Grande es tu fidelidad. Tu fidelidad es grande. Tu fidelidad incomparables. Nadie como tú, bendito Dios. Grande es tu fidelidad. Tu fidelidad es grande. Tu fidelidad incomparables. Nadie como tú, bendito Dios. Grande es tu fidelidad. Thank you, Jesus. We worship you, Lord.
Thank you. Again, that I think that song brought a lot of comfort to Dad in those times. And I know some of us don't speak Spanish, but it's a very beautiful song. It's very simple, and I think that's kind of like God's love for us, beautiful and simple. Um, I'm going to have one of Dad's nieces, Barbara Ramos, come up to read the obituary formally, and then also I'll say a few words about her, her memories and her time with Dad.
So I have my brother up here for moral support. Good evening, everyone. So I'm going to read the obituary. George James Ramos Sr., 66, of the Lower East Side, passed away peacefully on December 28, 2024, surrounded by his loving family. Born in the Bronx, George was the son of Nilda Luz Cordova and Bernardo Ramos, and grew up with five siblings: Bernard, Joseph, Raphael, Linda, and Antonio. He often reminisced about his childhood in the South Bronx, filled with laughter, love, and cherished moments with his siblings and cousins. In 1976, George met Eva Ramos, and it was the love at first sight. Their love story spanned 48 beautiful years, including 41 years of marriage. Together, they built a life rooted in love, resilience, and unwavering devotion, raising seven children: George Jr., Maurice, Lily, Destiny, Anthony, Angel, and Cheyenne. His heart overflowed with pride for his six grandchildren: Aria, Nathaniel, Delilah, Braylon, Chloe, and Bryce, who brought him endless joy. A master of his trade, George was a skilled plumber whose expertise, honesty, and dedication earned him the trust and admiration of clients across Manhattan's Lower East Side and the five boroughs. Beyond his work, George's passion reflected the richness of his spirit. He delighted in playing chess, cheering for the Yankees, and listening to freestyle and disco music, the oldies that brought him so much joy. His humor, generosity, and boundless kindness left a lasting impact on all who had the privilege of knowing him. George's legacy is one of love, strength, and a life well lived, and his memory will forever be a guiding light to his family and his friends. I also wrote a little something. So today we gather to honor and celebrate the life of my favorite uncle, one of my favorite uncles, because I have many. And I don't want to upset anybody. Okay. A man who was indeed one of a kind. He was a plumber by trade, a devoted father, a fantastic uncle, and above all, a man who brought a smile to everyone he met. My Uncle George taught us many things in life, but one lesson stands out. Never underestimate the power of a good wrench and a sense of humor. He used both to fix everything, whether it was a leaky faucet or a tough day. I remember when I was younger and the pipes froze in our house during the winter and it was freezing. And I cannot tell you how scared I was and at the same time how lucky I felt when I saw my uncle because I knew he was going to bring the heat. Despite the challenges he faced in life, he taught many of us to never give up. But my uncle was not just about fixing pipes. He was about building connections. He had a way of turning even the dullest moments into memories and laughter. He always had a way of bringing smiles and a sense of calm. And he always had a way with timing. He would always send me random text messages. Did anybody in here also get random text messages from him? Okay. But my favorite has to be the one where he would just say, I love you. As if he knew I needed to pick me up. My uncle was a humble man who wore his heart on his sleeve. He always had a smile. So he would want us to remember him with a smile, not tears. So the next time you hear a drip, don't be annoyed, just smile and think of him. I once heard a question that was asked, how can you tell if someone lived a good life? And the answer that I heard is by the amount of people that person has helped. And I can tell by looking at the people here today that my uncle was a great man and he lived a good life. Here is to the man that we knew how to fix things, how to laugh, and most importantly, how to love. We will miss you, Uncle George. Thank you for showing us that life is better with a bit of humor and a lot of heart. And to my Aunt Eva, I have so much love and respect for you. How you took care of him humbles me so much. And I hope that one day I could be the same type of woman that you are. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being there for him. I love you. I love you guys. Thank you.
My my uncle would also always say, if you're here, you, oh, I guess everybody. If you're here, you're queer and you like it in your. He was always a jokester. I just want to say something real fast. Um, I started working with my uncle when I was 14 years old. I asked my dad if he wouldn't mind asking my auntie and my uncle if I could work for him for the summer. Of course, my dad never asked, so I came to their house with a book bag, and they're like, "What are you doing here?" Like, um, my uncle is. I just want to say that one of the things that I took away from my uncle, which I appreciate so much, is his humbleness. I'm going to talk about myself real fast. I've taught a lot of people how to do plumbing for a living because I do plumbing myself, and I get that from my uncle. And when people come up to me and they say, Dave, thank you so much, I'm like, no, don't thank me. Just pay it forward because that's what my uncle taught me. And that's what he always inspired to do is just keep paying it forward. Like if you know George, he never wanted anybody's appreciation. Just pay me and keep it moving. Keep it simple, you know. And I'm so grateful and forever admired by my mentor and my hero. So I just wanted to say that and thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to continue on, and we'll have our prayer and our sermon portion by Apostle Stacy J. Ramos.
I don't even know what I could say. But first, for starters, I'm going to say, let's get the elephant out of the room. How is she a Ramos? Who is she? Everybody's like, what's going on, Ralph? What's going on? I'm a Ramos by choice. My sister, you all will probably know really quickly, Celeste. She was a Ramos. That was my big sister. I've been in the Ramos family since I was a kid. Grandma Nilda's my grandma. And I miss her. I love her. And to make it official, just so you know, in case my mom walks through the door and I don't get a beating, I kept the Johnson Ramos. So they still look at me strange, Ralph, but they're like, all right, we're all Ramoses. So just to get that out of the way. The other thing is I want to say there's a common thread here, and I'm just going to briefly talk about that. Now, you know, pastors talk long, so you're going to have to give me the little get off the podium real quick. But there's a common thread here that I keep hearing over and over and over again, and I'm going to talk about it. First and foremost, this is a celebration of life. I need you guys to get that. You got to get, no, I like that. Eva got it. Who's going to follow Eva? Eva got it. Who's going to follow her? Come on, one more time. Come on. This is a there you go. Georgie can hear you. He's going to call me Afro Puffs any minute now. This is a celebration of life. It's a homegoing service. We only here temporarily. And if we are blessed, like Uncle George, to be able to go, he knows where he is. He knows where he's going. We got to get that now because we're still here. And even though Georgie went and brought the salvation prayer to him, God is hilarious because I had no idea. The chaplain came, right? Then you, right? And then I came behind with Eva. Like, we wanted to make sure he's going to heaven. We was not joking about it. And he squeezed her hand the same way. And I had to do it. And I was blessed to be able to do that because I was supposed to get to see him, you know, and Ralphie always kept me up to date and everything, and down the years talking with Eva. But it was a blessing that we know where he's going. A lot of times ministers will get up and people will say things, but you just say it being kind. You just say it because that's what you want to believe. But we know that George James Ramos Sr. is in heaven with God. Come on, give God some glory. Give him some glory. Give him some praise because he says this is what you do and this is where you're going to go. Right? So I wrote down a lot of things, but I don't think I'm going to be able to say them all. But the one common thread, and I want to thank God from whom all blessings flow. The one common thread that I want to share with you all is this man lived a life that we can learn from. We are still learning from him right now. We're still learning. Everybody that gets up here keeps talking about how he was. And if you just take a look around this room right now, there's nothing, you can take a look. Don't be afraid. There's nothing but love in this room. How I want to be like him when I grow up. How I want to be like Georgie. I'm his little Afro Puffs. He used to bother me even with that all the time. I hated it. It was like Afro. I used to hate it. Now I like it because we want to keep our hair. So yeah, call me Afro Puffs any day. But this is a celebration of life. There's love around this room. And there's one common thread that keeps coming up. Before I say that, I want to give my condolences to the family, of course, from my family, from my mom, from my daughters, from everybody. We're all Ramoses in our hearts. That's really all we knew. My grandmother was Grandma Nilda. That's all I knew. That's all I really had. And I'm grateful for it. And so my condolences. And Eva, we're all going to be here for you, my sister, whenever you need, because it doesn't stop here, right? We think like this is it. And she's going to need your love and support for many, many days to come. Right? So I wanted to say that there's three things that this man lived in his life. And the three things, he was a joker, he did all these great things, but there's three things, and he lived a life of integrity. It's so hard to do that. I don't want to get choked up, but I'm still trying to live a life of integrity, and I got a collar on. He lived a life of integrity. He meant what he said. He did what he said. He moved forward with it, and he stayed consistent. Now, he wasn't a joke now. You don't want to get on his bad side if you know that. He was not a game, but he lived a life of integrity. He lived a life of consistency. How many of us can say that? That we're consistent in our love, in our families, in what we do. He was a fixer like Christ. Christ, how many of you have Christ touch your life? And if he hasn't, meet me outside. Meet George Jr. outside. You'll get a touch for free. But he's a fixer. He had so many things in common with the Lord. Compassion. He fixed things. He fixed people. And he never said anything about it. He just did it. He lived a life of integrity, compassion, consistency, and compassion. You got to have a big heart to have compassion for everyone. Now, no matter what he said, with his jokes, he still was very compassionate toward everybody. And that was part of his consistency. And he went forward with that. And most importantly, he lived a life of humility. I don't hear nobody talking back to me. People think they humble. That part. You don't have to ever say you're humble. People will say it for you. This was a humble man, and he lived a life of humility, and he's teaching us even in his passing. But we know from the word of God that this is just the beginning of life. This is not the end of life. And so we've got to be very on target with that, because once we know that when we leave here, we'll meet again. We will meet again and we will rejoice, and there will be no crying. There will be no tears. That all happens here. But when we leave here, it's really, really a Holy Ghost party. And this life of integrity, this life of compassion, this man gave of his time, his talent, and his treasure. His time, his talent, and his treasure. And I've been out of the scene for a while. He always stayed in touch with me. I got those random texts. He followed me on Facebook. At one point, he didn't even know who I was. And he was like, Afro Puffs? And I was like, yes, it's me. And he believed in me when nobody else did. He believed in me, Ralph. When I went on this path of ministry, he believed in me to the point where he wanted prayer. He said, no, you're going to pray. You're going to do this and you're going to do that. He gave of his time, his talent, and his treasure. James 4:10 says, the upright shall live, and they're going to live with integrity, and the children behind them are blessed. Look at his kids. Look at his wife. I aspire to be like that when I grow up. I'm going to keep saying it. The last thing I'm going to say here is I want you to do something for me. There's two things. Bear with me. I want you to, before I say that, I'm going to try to say this in Spanish. I have Spanglish. You guys know. Un hombre de, Ralphie? Humility. A man, a guy of humility. I want you all to put your right hand on your heart. Right? We're facing. Put your right hand on your heart. This man had a heart of a giant. In your lifetime, you're going to very not see a lot of people like this. It's like 2%, if that much. When you think of him, when you need and you fill in the blanks, put your hand on your heart. He was a man of humility, and that's like Christ. He was sent here on purpose for Eva, for his family, through his mom, for his kids, for the connections that his niece said that he made. Put your hand on your heart and just remember, hombre de corazón, humildad, humildad, whenever you think of him. And then the last thing I want you to do, if there's anybody here that wants to be sure of where they're going, I'm not going to embarrass you. You don't have to get up. I'm not going to tell you to do this and do that. But right where you're sitting, if you want to know that when you leave this place, you're secure with where you're going to go, it's not a game. He is secure. His family is secure. If you want to be secure in where you're going to go, please, right where you're sitting right now, just repeat in your silence of your heart, Lord Jesus, I come before you right now as a sinner. I ask that you forgive my sins, God, because you're the only one who can. I make you my Lord and Savior on today, because this homegoing service is not about Georgie. It's about the lives that are still here. I make you my Lord and Savior on today, no matter what, no matter if it's strange, different, no matter if I feel whatever kind of way, no matter if I'm still doing bad things that you may not approve of. I know that you gave your life for me. You died on the third day, and I believe you will come again, and you're going to come soon. I make you my Lord and Savior on this day. Please receive me and be my God, be my Lord, and be my Christ. If you did that in the sincerity of your heart, He heard you. It doesn't matter where you are, He knows everything about you, and He's going to accept you. If you don't have a church home, if church is not for you, get with a group of folks that can get to the Word of God, that can minister to your soul and to your heart, so that you know when you leave this place and your family leaves this place that they're going on upward. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, honey. So, I'm gonna move on with the eulogy. I'm probably gonna cry. Is that okay with you guys? Yeah. Okay. I learned this about myself through my dad's process of passing. I cry ugly, and and I think very feminine. Unfortunately, it's just the way it's been lately. Um, so I'll do the best I can to try to like man it up. But I think I had some notes. Just bear with me. All right. So fathers can be complicated, right? Fathers can be complicated. M- I was lucky enough to have a really good relationship with my dad. A good friend of mine, Jose, in the back. We come from the same building. One of my only friends from childhood that I still have. That's either alive or not in prison. One of my good friends. A lot of us where we come from don't have dads. They don't know who their dads are, or their dads are incarcerated or not involved. And I didn't have that. I grew up with my dad. I was very, very lucky. I was very, very lucky in a time where a lot of people weren't. When I say that dads are complicated, sometimes, especially if you're the oldest, you don't know exactly where you sit with them immediately. Like, is this person proud of me? Are they angry with me? Whatever the case was. And there were times where I wasn't sure if my dad was proud of me because I'm not a good plumber. I'm not like good at mechanics. Yeah. So I'm not naturally gifted in those things. Now, I would say I'm more handy than the average husband, but I'm less handy than the average Ramos. It's a weird place to be. So it's a really weird place. Like I could put a water heater in if I needed to. I could put a toilet in, but I can't do it to the standard that like my brother, my father, or my uncles could do. So it sort of leaves me in this space. Um, well, on the Gonzalez side as well, for that matter. So I wasn't really somewhat sure. And I remember I went to go work with my dad for a few summers when I was in college. And I know we keep referencing plumbing, but it was just kind of like almost his love language was his work. And and the way in which he would, and that was I think when you saw some of the best of him, you got to see his integrity, his smarts. You got a chance to see his business acumen, and I think he treated people very fairly. Maybe sometimes too fair. But I think he tried his best to be honest, not only when people were looking, but when people weren't looking, right? And he tried to do that. I remember working with him, and he had asked me to hammer something. Now, the way you appropriately use a hammer is you have to take the end of the hammer to leverage the maximum force in order to strike down. So I was hammering it from the middle, like a non-Ramos. He was not pleased about that. And I remember my uncle Ralph actually called, and Ralph said something, and my dad said, "I'm in the middle of showing Portia how to use a hammer. I'll call you back." And it was just like sort of moments like that, being with him, working were really rich, and I'll take them always with me. And there was just so many good times I had just kind of on the job and learning a lot, but also just enjoying him. And I didn't really realize how rich those moments were. And I didn't really realize how blessed I was. Excuse me, at that time. The last thing I want to say about Dad's plumbing, plumbing, plumbing career is that, is that sometimes when I would, well, there was one time we were working at this place called Barney's, working underground, and I remember, I'm gonna cry here. he had me doing the threading machine, which is how you screw pipes in for gas pipe. And I remember I was doing it, and my uncle Jay was giving me a hard time because I was kind of messing it up. He was like, "Porgy, you're screwing it up." And this guy named Country was like, "You're messing this thing up." So I tried to, Dad gave me some tips. I adjusted it. I ended up doing, we got the job done basically. And I remember he looked at me, we were in a van, it was all of us. And he said, "Porgy, I'm really proud of you. You did a really good job." It might have been the first time he'd ever articulated that to me in that way. And I remember it took everything in me not to cry. But I remember feeling like, wow, this is a big moment for me as a man. Because the other thing with Dad, if he got emotional, he'd be like, "What? Who am I, dear Abby?" Like he wouldn't really, like he didn't really want all that. But yeah, so that was something that was like my, I think like my passage as a man was in that experience with Dad, and he could do that for you. He can kind of make you feel whole in that way. When I told my mom about, when my mom was sort of putting her thoughts together, she said, "Porgy, I think people are going to say the same thing." And I was like, "Mom, we shouldn't be worried about that. I think that just validates the kind of person that Dad is, right? And it validates, even though it might seem somewhat repetitive, a lot of people had a similar experience with this person, and I think that says a lot about." It says, it says a lot about his character. See, it's the feminine. It says a lot about his character, but it also says a lot about how he impacted other people and what that, what that looked like. And obviously, my mom and my dad, they've been together for like 48 years, and they've been married for 41. And I was talking with my brother recently, and I said, you really want to try to find someone like Mom, someone that really cared for Dad throughout the entirety of his life, and you really want to try to find someone that, in the Bible says, "He who finds a wife finds a good thing." And not only to my brother, but to all of us and myself, that's what I was looking for in my own partner, which is someone that I can see some of those qualities are and what that looks like. And I think that's something we all kind of want in our partners, right? Someone that's going to be there for us. And when Maurice talked about Mom being there for Dad, it was like endlessly. It was almost like it was a lot of these trips and a lot of her patience and a lot of her time. And she was really dedicated to him in that way. And it was beautiful to see. Something else that I think is important to mention about Dad is, obviously Dad was married this time, but he had in-laws, but his in-laws weren't his in-laws. His in-laws were like his family. Like there wasn't a distinction. Like Titi Jenny isn't like Eva's sister, that's his sister. Titi Michelle isn't my mom's sister, or Tio Tito is not Mom's brother, it's Dad's brother. And I sort of remember wanting to model that for my own relationship with my own in-laws. Thankfully I have a connection like that with them. That's something I think it's important because I remember I was visiting a friend recently. He was like, "Yo, I hate my mother-in-law." I was like, "I love my mother-in-law." And I think I modeled that a lot after my dad wanting to be close to my in-laws and recognizing that family is large, right? And family tends to grow. Another thing I want to bring up is Dad was famous for his nicknames. Uncle Ralph has sort of pointed this out in one of his posts. But it's I look around the room, is random nicknames. He'd be like J-Lo or the Box, Lilliput, it might be Desktop, Tito, I. Who else do we have? Clydo, Afro Puffs, right? So this is the LL Cool J. Yes, I don't want to forget that one. Nano. Some of his nicknames weren't super creative. Like it was just Jersey Dave, which isn't great, but it got the job done. So that's the sort of person he was. That he would have. He'd have these nicknames, and it was a way of kind of almost cementing his connection with you. Something else that I remember about Dad, and I won't be much longer. Something else I remember is when he was really sick in in November, one of the doctors had, his doctor and a resident had come in. They said, "Your dad's really sick. We think that these are the final days." And maybe, I don't know, it was just the now, because he's always sort of popped back up. And I remember the doctor said something to Dad, and Dad gave him, Dad used to like to give this finger gesture. So he gave the doctor's finger gesture. And I remember the doctor said, "Oh my goodness, he's delirious." And I said, no, doc, he's actually fine. This is great news. This means that he's in his body, like he knows exactly what's happening. And I remember the doctor was like, "Well, why did he do that?" I was like, "It's a form of endearment." I don't think he really liked it. But that's kind of the sort of person that's always joking. And sometimes people say, "Well, Porgy, you're kind of funny." I'll be like, "I'm the least funniest person in my family. This is like a sitcom that I'm sort of living in." And I think Dad, probably the funniest of all of us. Um, one of the last things I want to say is that Dad's honesty was always really refreshing in a world where, because he was skilled in this particular labor, there were opportunities where he could exploit people financially if he wanted to. I remember going to this couple's house and their faucet wasn't working. So the gentleman was like, "Can you fix it?" And dad, he twisted off this filter and just cleaned it out, and then the pressure was restored. And the guy asked him, "Well, how much?" And dad said, "No charge." And that was an opportunity that he could have said, "Well, you need a new faucet, or there's some sort of blockage," and he didn't. He did the right thing, and I think that sticks with us. As we move forward, as we move forward, as a family together, it's going to be important to have dad's legacy and memories with us, but God's going to have to teach us how to live without dad. And that doesn't mean that he's not here. It just means that he's not accessible to us like he was before. Dad, we love you, and we're proud of you. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to my wife to say a few words before we continue on.
God bless you, everybody. Um, the first thing that I want to say is that I've been in the family since I was 17, and it's truly been an honor to be part of the Ramos and Gonzalez family. Um, as I kept reflecting on dad, two stories kept coming to mind. And I want to share them because it pretty much encapsulates what my relationship with him was. When Porgy and I first started dating, he was talking about introducing me to his parents, and he kept warning me about his dad. And I was like, I would think you'd be nervous to introduce me to your mom. And he just kept warning me about his dad. And then finally, he was like, listen, my dad is the sweetest guy you're ever gonna meet, but he makes a lot of Dominican jokes. And I'm Dominican. And truly, till the last day, he was making Dominican jokes. But they were harmless. They were mostly about plátanos. And I would give it back to him. And every time I invited him to my house, I would tell him, I have mango waiting for you. And he would say, no mango, Nandi. And so that's what it always was. Just him and I always joking, always joking. The second story that I want to share was before George and I were even engaged or even thinking about getting engaged, he asked me to call him dad. And that wasn't something that came easy to me. I was estranged from my father at the time, and it didn't come easy. But every time I didn't do it, he would call me out on it and he would insist, no, call me dad. And eventually, even though it was really hard for me to say that word, I wanted to honor the love that he was extending to me. And it became easy and easy and easy. And there came a time where I didn't even have to think about it. And I never got the chance until recently to tell him how much that meant to me and how much healing that brought to me. And again, as you look around, as you see the list of kids and grandkids, he was a dad. He really, truly was a dad. And I was so grateful to God that He gave me the opportunity to tell him how much that meant to me and how much I cherished that. So thank you.
Thank you. So what we are going to do now is we're going to have some reflections. Dad has three surviving siblings, three brothers. We're going to start off with the first brother and the youngest brother, Antonio, and he'll say a few words, and then we'll go to Theo Ralph, and then Theo Jr.
Wow. There's a lot I want to say. God bless you guys for being here. A lot I want to say, a lot I want to do. Is an inspiration by being this man's underwing And yes, I am his underwing. And I learned more than ever. I've been through so much. My brother always used to tell me, "Tone, chill out. I'm gonna put my foot up your ass." But with all respects, I say when they cut his leg off, I said, "George, now you don't got no toes. You're more than welcome to." You know. Well, the reason I say that because he always kept me in my straights. He kept me in my honor. He kept me in the respect, and he showed me what dignity is. And not only him, these two gentlemen right here gave me what I needed, the final call. You know what it is to be a man, what it is to be honorable, and what it is to be with the family. I um I love my brother dearly. I'm gonna miss him, and Dubai is one thing, but his soul is still with us. And we're going to keep that together. And we are a strong family. We all a strong family. Nobody can be better than us because we're going to let nobody be better than us. Why? Because we are Ramos. And what else we are? Family. So I don't want to hold everybody up here because I'm really getting real sentimental. But I'm going to hold this to the heart. My brother George, I didn't expect you to take the wrench with you to heaven. I did not. Now he got a job everywhere. He does. He's gonna go out there and fix God's plumbing. Whoa, piping specialist himself. And I want to say thank you so much. And I have my beautiful as brother right here, my man right here, King Cognito. King Cognito. Thank you, Tom. Thank you.
I I'd just like to say that I am so proud to have been able to say that James George James Ramos was my brother. I'm very proud of that. Right? Love my brother. Um, and also, so I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about George the provider, but I also want to talk about how we got into this plumbing thing. So I have some cousins here today. If you just raise your hand. So we grew up as cousins, but we're more like siblings because we all lived in a basement, about 16 of us. And so where did we learn about pipes was because we played in this basement, 60 family apartment building with pipes all over the place. And we would play on the pipes like monkey bars. We know if you break that pipe, you're gonna get a cold shower. If you break that pipe, you're gonna get burned. And if you break that pipe, you're gonna get stinky. So this is how we learned. My grandmother was the superintendent. We were her grandchildren, and our job was to maintain those buildings. So we learned very young the trades, electrical and plumbing and so on. So if there's one thing someone mentioned, don't mess with George. Well, there's a lot of plumbers in here, I'm sure. And one thing plumbers know that nobody else knows is how things go down, right? So you don't mess with George. Um, Let me talk a little bit about George the provider. Now, when I have no shame to talk about my family and our past and the hard times. I'm very proud of it all of it. There was six of us, and we lived on 102nd Street between Park Avenue and Lexington. And on this particular day, we didn't have any more food. And so our regular staple there was milk and rice soup, right? You ever had that salty rice soup? Well, that was what was maintaining us, but we ran out of that, so we didn't even have that. The only thing we had in the refrigerator was a box of something that said manteca, right? And we had one shoe shine box in the house. We had a shoe brush, we had a rag, but we had no shoe polish. Back then, George was about 8 years old, and he had not yet had his eyes. George had his eyes were not square, so he had the surgery to square his eyes off. So George took the shoebox and the manteca, the brush and the cloth, and went out. And he must have went out about 12 in the day, came back at about 7 or 8 at night. And he came to mommy and said, "Look, mommy, yo tengo dinero para comida." And my mother started crying. And so that's George the provider. So whatever they're like when they're very young, that's how they're going to be when they're adults. George was always a provider. And that's sort of indicative of all the people that worked with George all those years and did plumbing. I too worked with George and did plumbing, and I enjoyed it. In fact, there's some people in here today who were involved in all those episodes that we had, right? So, but I'm very proud to call George my brother, George the provider. We were in Lincoln Hall together, Lincolndale, New York, with the boys' reform school, upstate New York, and I got sick one night. I must have been maybe 11, and I got sick one night, and there was a snowstorm, and they allowed George to put me on a toboggan and pull me to the infirmary, which was about 400 yards away. That always stayed in my memory about my brother George, the provider, the caretaker, you know. And of course, George had his nickname for me, so he would call me up. Hey, Mama, what you doing? And I say, hey, Bimbo, how are you? And he goes, no, I'm just checking in on you. You okay? That's just how he was. Not only that, but even to my own children, George would check in, and he would always just, you get the random text from George, I love you, with the typos and everything, you know? And but that's who he was. My brother gave of his heart, you know, and I'm so proud that to say George Ramos was my brother. We are a very close family. We bigger and we fight like everybody else, but we know how to forgive and we know how to move on. So with that, I want to say thank you all for coming and thank you for sharing and thank you for listening to me. My brother Jose.
Que yo digo, lo único que yo digo es gracias, Eva, for being with my brother. I appreciate that. I love you for that. Because you stood by him when he needed you the most. The only thing I got to say about my brother, he was a good man. He did a lot. He helped a lot of people. He gave all his all to all the people so they could be what they are today. I know because I worked with my brother for a couple of years too. And I learned a lot from him. But all I could say is thank you because are we here to celebrate him? It's not about us, it's about him. Okay, that's all I gotta say. Thank you.
Rafael, Jose, God bless you guys. First there was 7, and now there's 3. Let's keep it going forward. Family first.
Thank you, Theo. So we're running a little short on time. We're coming to the close of our time together. I'm going to invite my siblings, Anthony, Destiny, Lily, Cheyenne, and Angel up. They're just going to talk about that, and then they'll close us out. And then with the balance of the time, we'll continue to do the viewing until they kick us out with Puerto Rican. You know how it is. All right, so, you guys want to come up together?
So, ladies and gentlemen, family and friends, thank you for gathering here today to celebrate the life of my beloved uncle and father, George. My name is Angel. I am one of George's daughters. It's hard to find the right words to express the depth of our loss and the magnitude of his impact on our lives. George was not just my uncle, he was my dad, a constant source of love and support for my sisters, brothers, and myself. From the moment we entered this world, he embraced us as his own, and every single day he demonstrated what it meant to be a father. He was our rock, our cheerleader, always encouraging us to chase our dreams and never give up. No matter the challenges we faced, his pride was in us, and I could see it in his eyes every time I accomplished something, no matter how small. George was a hardworking man, the backbone to our family. He taught us the value of dedication and resilience. I remember countless days where he would wake up early to work hard, always with a smile on his face, showing us the importance of commitment and perseverance. One of my fondest memories is of the joy rides my cousin Tiffany and I would take with him in the car when we were teens. We would We would blast his embarrassing oldies, and while we laughed at the music, he would sing with such enthusiasm. Those moments filled with laughter and joy. Those moments were filled with laughter and joy, and I will forever cherish the memories of those carefree days spent together, cracking jokes and sharing stories. I also recall those mornings when he would drop me off at school. He had this incredible ability to make even the simplest things feel special. He would give me a hug and tell me to have a great day and always remind me to believe in myself. Those words of encouragement have stayed with me, guiding me through life's ups and downs. As we gather here today, let us remember George, not just for the father he was to me and my siblings, but for the love, kindness, and strength he shared with all of us. His spirit will always live in our hearts, and I am grateful for every moment I had with him. Thank you, Dad, for everything. You will be deeply missed, but never forgotten. Before I leave, I would like to thank you, Eva, for being the mom I never had and the woman I aspire to be. You have been my backbone of this family alongside Dad, and I will always look up to you as a woman. I thank you for all of your contributions to our family, and just know that I will always be here for you. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. We're gathered here today to remember and celebrate the extraordinary life of George Ramos. For those who don't know, I am his niece, but I'm also his daughter. My uncle was a man of humble beginnings, but he was rich in ways that cannot be measured by material possessions. He was rich in wisdom, kindness, and love. He was a kind man who understood the value of hard work and the importance of honesty and the strength of humility. His life was not an easy journey, but it was the one he faced with courage, dignity, and unwavering resilience. He taught me the importance of family and, most importantly, to always believe in myself. I will forever cherish the memories of our late night talks, his silly jokes, and the warmth of his embrace. He used to remind me how, as a child, I always wanted to show him how I could play hopscotch. Every time I used to visit him, I used to smile and say, hopscotch deal, hopscotch. So every time he would come, and every time I come visit, he will always remind me. He would just, say the same thing to me because he would always tell me he would love to see every time. Since I'm an adult now, I'm a child. I used to be a child. Um, Uncle George was a steady heartbeat to our family, a gentle force that kept us grounded and gave us roots. I've always admired how much time and effort he devoted not only to our family but also to the friends, peers, and everyone who came into his life. He made everyone feel special, valued, and loved. I'm deeply grateful for to have had him in my life. If I could go back and do it all over again, I wouldn't change a thing. I love you, Theo, and may you rest peacefully.
Hello, everybody. Hi. Hello. Hi. So I was gonna say a poem, but I know that we're short on time, so I just wanted to get to the point. Um, one of the last conversations I had with Theo, was I just want to give a little bit of a backstory. Was this year has been super hard, um, for I think our family, for me. Um, one of the last things he told me was, you have to make up your mind. It's a yes or a no. And a lot of the times I procrastinate and I'll, wait till the end to get things done. But one of the things that he always showed me was that he'll never stop showing up for us. And I see how, and I was talking to mom. Um, I wanted to say to everybody, I see that, everybody's different, unique, you know, but we all have some type of fear or some type of, negative thing that sometimes overpowers. But one thing I could always say that they always said, you know what, forget about it. You got to keep going. You got to keep pushing. You got to keep being who you are, because you are the staple to who you are. People are going to remember you by you. Um, One of the things I will say to wrap it up, um, is that Theo never gave up on me. And I'm really, really tremendously grateful. My siblings here, he's not my Theo, he's my dad. But he would tell me to man up right now, so I'm not trying to cry. Um, but he's my best Theo ever, and I love him so much. And he continues to live with me, and I'm gonna just be so grateful. And one other thing, I'm so sorry, is that I'm really grateful to have had the chance to have my son and give my son his name. So, yeah.
Oh, I didn't even think I was gonna be able to do this today. But everybody knows me as the trouble kid, as the problem child. But let's be real, mom. Be for real. But he always taught me that no matter what I had got going on, no matter what I struggled with, even if it's mentally, physically, whatever I had got going on, that he was always there for me. And even if it's not that, I had my siblings, I had my mom, I had everybody there for me. And even though he's gone now, I know he's always going to be here no matter what. And I love him. We love you, Destiny.
So we're running against time. I think the person from the funeral said that they're going to be actually closing the viewing the casket at 8 o'clock, which leaves about 10 minutes. So we're officially done with our program. If people want to obviously stay, catch up with each other, or if you'd like to, continue the viewing, we have about 10 more minutes. Thank you so much for your time, for your empathy, and for your love for Dad. And we really appreciate everyone coming out, friends, family, business people, everyone. Thank you so much, and God bless you all.